Hi, I'm John and welcome to the Jigsaw Puzzler. Today's puzzle is this one. It's a Mindbogglers 1000 piece puzzle called Florence, Italy. This is a really traditional jigsaw puzzle image. Back in the day, before we had all sorts of variety of designs and artworks on jigsaw puzzles, there were a lot of puzzles that looked something like this. A cityscape, usually of somewhere quite well known, mountains or sky or both, gardens in the bottom, very standard traditional jigsaw puzzle image. Lots of people who are not really into jigsaw puzzles would probably imagine something like this when they think jigsaw puzzle. This is an older jigsaw puzzle from 2016, not that old I suppose, about 9 years old. But I have quite a few Mindbogglers puzzles, and my puzzle partner has a stack in her collection as well. And so I've done a lot of puzzles of this brand before. Mindbogglers are at the really affordable end of the jigsaw puzzle spectrum. Often they're on sale in bookstores here in Australia for relatively low prices compared to the premium brands like Ravensburger, Clementoni and Heyer. The image itself is a view over the city of Florence in Italy. Here at the side we have the great cathedral, the Duomo, we have the Signoria, and in the front here, right up close, we have actually a cemetery. These are mausoleum style tombs here and headstones and monuments here in the front, right up close, overlooking the city of Florence, the bell tower here, the Campanile, and various other things right into the distance. And we have this blue sky, but with mountains and hills just visible in the background. This puzzle, as I say, dates from 2016, so it's one of the older Mindbogglers puzzles that I've got. I purchased it secondhand, and it's complete, which I'm really pleased about. In fact, it's more than complete. It came with one extra piece from a completely different puzzle. This is not a duplicate of one of the existing pieces. Unfortunately, somebody out there has a puzzle donated to charity by the previous owner of this one with this piece missing. But this puzzle is complete. All right, let's talk about the quality of this puzzle. And I'd like to talk a little bit about Mindbogglers puzzles quality in general as well. This puzzle is quite glossy for a start, so very reflective and very difficult to do without looking if you've got overhead lights. So you do have to be careful of what direction your lights are coming from for this one. The puzzle pieces are moderately large, not huge. They're not the jumbo extra large size pieces. They're not the teeny tiny small ones that you find in some puzzles. They are a sort of average to slightly larger than average size. It has a loose fit. There's no way I'm going to satisfactorily pick this puzzle up and hold it suspended. That will come apart very easily. Even doing sections of it, if I had to move or adjust a section slightly, it was quite fragile to pick up. It would hold together, but very delicate picking it up and moving even small sections. The cardboard is relatively thin. I've got much thicker cardboard pieces. It's okay. It's not super thin, but it's not on the sturdy side, which I would have expected from Mindbogglers. The pieces also don't interlock really tightly. The shape of the tabs is more of a semicircle. There's a slight curvature, like to make a loop to create a sort of a grip part where the adjoining piece grips together, but actually they fit together quite loosely. Different. The tab style is a bit blunt or something. I don't really know how to describe it. It does fit together, but it's a loose fit. There are many false fits on this puzzle, particularly in the sky and these darker patches of trees down the bottom. get onto that when I talk around how I did the puzzle. Now, I've seen a lot of comments about Mindbogglers puzzles on various forums and groups, with a lot of people saying that they were not happy with the quality of their Mindbogglers puzzles. And that really stumped me. Every time I see that, that really stumps me, because I think I have never experienced a poor quality or even a moderately average quality Mindbogglers puzzle. As I say, I've got quite a few of them, and I've quite liked them. They seem to be good quality, thickish cardboard, interlocking quite nicely, and all of the things that you would expect. But this one, I've decided, is actually probably the sort that people are complaining about online, because of the false fits, because of the way they interlock. Not really premium quality puzzle cutting machinery, I wouldn't think. Mostly, I would think that's reflected in the price, because they are the far more affordable end of puzzles. But yeah, I don't think this is a premium quality cut. So I decided to do a little test. I got a couple of my other Mindbogglers puzzles out and just opened the box. So here I've got one. This is of Procida in Italy, another Italian town, and this one here is of a lake in Alberta in Canada. And I opened the Italian town one first, and the pieces are quite different, actually. If I just get a piece out of the bag and compare it to one of the Florence puzzle, I can even open the bag. Right, so this seems to be a little bit thicker cardboard than the Florence one. Yeah, a fraction thicker. Not substantially, not twice as thick, but yeah, somewhat thicker. The pieces are approximately the same size, so, you know, fairly standard puzzle pieces. But this one, the cut seems much more premium, if you like. They interlock much more nicely. They fit together more beautifully in the other puzzle than the Florence one. Similarly, in the Canadian one, I found the same. It seemed to have a more premium fit of pieces, as opposed to this one, which seemed a bit of a cheaper cut. There's something about the way that the edges, I'm not sure about the edges of the pieces, whether that has anything to do with it. If you look really closely, they seem to just curve ever so slightly at the edges where the cut has been made on the machinery. So it's not 100% flat and then a totally perpendicular edge. There's a slight curve, so it seems to me that they fit together much more snugly, not particularly tightly, but a bit more snugly. Whereas this one is it's quite flat, and it seems to be a perpendicular cut straight through. So you do get edges and corners that sort of are flicking and peeling up on some of the pieces where previous owners have taken it apart and they've kind of rubbed up against each other. Whereas I think that this is just a better, they've used better machinery or something like that to cut the pieces for that puzzle. So I thought, well, I wonder if they changed their production at some point. So if I look on the back of this puzzle, on the box, on the bottom, it tells me that this one is copyright 2016. Hinkler, an address in Victoria in Australia, printed and manufactured in China, and then just a blurb about Mindbogglers puzzles, and of course another version of the image. If we look at the Procida one, similar arrangement, but they have updated their graphics, and this one is from 2022, so 6 years difference between them. They've updated their graphics, they've upgraded their logo, and now they've got this feature here, premium snap fit interlocking puzzle pieces. So that to me says that they have upgraded their machinery between the two, and the quality of the pieces, or at least the quality of the cut of the pieces, has improved. If I look at the one of the lake in Canada, it's 2017. So this one was produced 1 year after the Florence one, and we have the premium snap fit interlocking puzzle pieces logo there, which says to me that somewhere in 2016 or early 2017, they actually changed the manufacturer, or the manufacturers changed their machinery to produce Mindbogglers puzzles, because I'm pretty sure this would be one of the earliest ones that I've got date-wise, and subsequent Mindbogglers puzzles are of this higher quality than the earlier ones. So I think that it's lower quality, partly because it was done on less premium machinery to be produced. So the other thing about the newer ones is I haven't, even with this one, which I have done with my puzzle partner and I, we spent better part of a couple of days doing this one. It's quite challenging, but even this one doesn't really have the false fits that I found with the Florence one. So I think they're upgraded machinery, upgraded cut, but they've also upgraded the puzzle patterns so that the false fits are less of an issue, much more enjoyable. So I'm expecting that the puzzles that people are complaining about from Mindbogglers are this kind of one from the older machines, the older manufacturing process. All right, so that's quite a bit about the quality of this one. That being said, there are a variety of pieces. It's ribbon cut, and there are a variety of shapes. It's not just the two shape, vertical and horizontal, which would have made this quite tedious, I think. The variety of shapes makes it interesting and actually makes it much more achievable, particularly given the number of false fits. There were only really a couple of sections. This line up the top here, if you watch the time lapse right at the end, fiddling and fiddling and fiddling to get that right, until I finally found I put an incorrect piece over here that should have been over there, and vice versa, and lo and behold, the whole thing went together. Similarly down here, these 5 pieces down the bottom here, 5 pieces, took me ages to figure out which 5 pieces went in there, because I was doing the 2 darker tree sections at once. And so I just plugged away until I was left with such a limited number of pieces, it could only be a couple of them. So false fits are a problem with this one. It's a lovely image. It's not too brown, it's not too faded, it's not too old-fashioned, even though it is a very traditional old-fashioned kind of image. The image itself though, the photo, it's hard to know what we are looking at. The point of focus really for something like Florence should be one of the landmarks. Now, our eyes are drawn. Now, they've divided the puzzle up into the thirds. You know, photographers have this rule of thirds where they try to line things up on the 1/3, the 2/3 line. And I think with the horizontal, that's pretty good, because the bottom third here is very close up of this cemetery. The middle third mostly is the city itself, and the top third is just the far distance of the city and the sky and the hills in the distance. But vertically, we've got on the thirds these 2 towers, the Tower of the Signoria and the Tower of the Campanile, and yet that has sidelined and pushed right to the edge the great dome of the cathedral. To me, that seems to be an odd decision to position such a prominent landmark so close to the edge. It may be that they were looking at the 2 towers, but really your eye is drawn to this great dome, and it's way over on the side of the puzzle, leaving all of this in the middle here, which is, apart from some of the architectural features, this other dome in the middle, the rest of the cathedral, the Signoria, the Campanile, the rest of it is actually quite bog standard Italian city. 3, 4, 5 stories high, with the windows, with the arches or curves over the windows, shutters, all fairly standard Italian city. Whereas these large landmarks, I would have thought would be the focus of the puzzle. However, that's what it is. That's how the photographer did it, and that's what Mindbogglers chose to portray on the image. So how did I do this puzzle? Well, started out as usual, pulled out all the edges. Pulled out the dome, pulled out this monument here, which is a little mausoleum in the grounds of the cemetery, and because the stone here, the rich brown, I don't know if it's sandstone, but it looks like sandstone, the rich brown stone, quite easy to identify the pieces, and the little roofs here, very easy to identify those in the box. I pulled those out, and yeah, the dome, the two domes actually, because it took a little bit to separate the pieces, whether parts of this dome here were part of the small ones at the base of the Duomo, and just started piecing those together. Then I put the edges together. That took a while to get the correct edge across the top. Not too hard given the false fit problem, but it did take a little bit of backwards and forwards and manipulating. When you did get the right piece, they did slot together well. When you got the wrong one, sometimes it fitted together okay until you discover that you had the wrong one all along and you had to swap it all around. Same at the bottom here with these trees, tree areas. Again, fitting those together wasn't too bad. There's not a huge span of trees on the edges here. It was the sky that was the bigger problem with the edge. Put the dome together, started putting the mausoleum together. And then I was looking at the picture and thinking, well, what do I do? Where is my eye drawn to put this together? There's an orange building here, so I did pick that out. There are some pink flowers here, the only section with flowers on it, prominently featured there. There's this railing here with this headstone over here, so I pulled that out. And I pulled out all the green parts, the trees. And a lot of the trees here in particular form an edge that you can follow with the building, the adjoining buildings. So you can create an internal edge with the trees, and that was quite helpful. And then filling in the blanks in that wasn't too hard. There are not too many pieces which are just purely green, and different leaf shapes and sizes from this tree to this do help to be able to sort that out. I did this hedge down here as well, and this area over here, the brighter greens, and I've also pulled out the darker areas eventually once I'd done more of that, and had to do a bit of sorting out to get those together. The other prominent edge in the puzzle is this one here, where the city becomes quite faded as it goes off into the background. There's fog or cloud appearing across the horizon here. So the very faded edge of the city, I pulled out those pieces and just worked my way along, piecing those together. And then I picked out the next layer of the city, the next closest buildings, the next ones that were the slightly larger, and worked my way down into the middle here. There are some large prominent buildings. These ones here across the front here. This one here with a white section of covering over scaffolding. This band here, which is all in shadow, but each building has different shaped windows or slight variations on the shapes of windows. And then the brown section in the middle here, and these buildings here, which are a band of roof and rectangular windows underneath. I started to make strips of those, and if you watch the time lapse, you'll see that I end up with almost like stripes of pieces across the puzzle with bits in between missing. Of course, after that, I had to look for smaller and smaller parts. There's a steeple here. There are two bright yellow cranes here. There's a whole stack of cranes in the background, construction cranes, including another yellow one. A white one here with a yellow armature at the top of it, quite close up. It looks like there's a lot of construction going on in Florence at the date that this was being photographed. And so you just started to use those landmarks as ways of positioning pieces on the board, and then eventually just filling in the blanks with whatever remained. That being said, I worked on the darker patches here and eventually got the whole city done up to the skyline. And I was left with the sky, and I deliberately left that to last. And I'm glad I did in a way, because it would have sucked the pleasure out of it if I'd tackled that first. I would have discovered very early on the number of false fits, and I probably would have gotten quite frustrated and given up. But When we look closely at this sky area, there is an edge here where you can see a hill in the shadows, so you end up with two different colours. You end up with a band of fog which is quite faded and pale blue. There is another edge of the hill that goes across here and sort of vanishes into the blue. And then there are puffs of clouds at approximately this height, the 2 and 3 pieces down from the top. So there's some areas like this here are very dark, here very dark, over here very dark, where others closer to the edges and closer to this side are very light. So I had all the blue pieces out, and then of course I could shape sort and fill in blanks by using the existing missing edges to try to find the pieces that went in. That did take a while, but honestly it wasn't as tricky as I expected, except right at the end I just could not get 4 or 5 pieces in over here. I knew I had all the pieces, I knew there were none missing, but I could not find the right combination to get them in until you probably see in the time lapse, I haven't looked at it yet, me just basically with my head on top of it, up close, looking to see where I had placed a single wrong piece further along. And I did find it over here somewhere, I think it was that piece, and swapped it for the corresponding one that was missing over here, and then they all went into place as if by magic. It was really lovely. And then it was done. This did take me quite a few hours. I plugged away at it over, I don't know, a couple of days. Plugged away at it in the evenings and eventually got it done. Pleased to see that it's complete. So if you're up for a challenge like this, then I can recommend Mindbogglers puzzles. I recommend them anyway. I think they are. The later ones, obviously the later date ones, are much better quality. Good traditional images, if you like that kind of thing. I don't mind them. I love buildings. I've got any number of puzzles with architecture in them. So I actually just like the built environment, urban forms and buildings and things like that. So I'm not so taken with the traditional style of the image, but I am taken with the architecture of a place like this. So I'm more than happy to put something like this together. All right, so the time-lapse is coming up shortly. If you'd like to click like and subscribe, give me your comments below on what you think of these kinds of traditional images, what your experience with Mindbogglers puzzles have been in the past. Have you had ones that are like this that you've thought, nah, the quality's just not there? Or have you more had the experience of the later ones where you think, actually, I really quite like the quality of this? So let me know what your thoughts are about these puzzles in the comments below. And we'll have the time lapse now, and thank you for watching.